Because here's what I find interesting, Mr. Padilla. You're essentially working with the defense. Now, your job as a bounty hunter is that you bring people in. You drag them in. I mean, you might...
What, I quit being a citizen because I'm a bounty hunter when I see something that cries out for help?
What is it about this case that makes you so
Nobody wants to admit that she's alive. Everybody wants to
Why are
write
you
her
so
off.
convinced? Now, let me make this point. Here's a woman who's done nothing but, let's just say it, lie, who becomes righteously indignant when anybody challenges her. What makes you think she's going to go to you and go, oh, Mr. Padilla, thank God you're here. Let me come forward with the truth.
Why shouldn't she?
But why should she?
Because it's happened thousands of times. I've chased skips for 33 years. They all lie. Their parents lie. Everybody lies. And eventually we get somebody that gives us a grain of truth out of 1,000 lies, and we follow that up. And you know.
All right, let's go to Bill Majeski, who's a former New York Police Department detective. I'm curious, your point of view from a police officer's frame of mind. What do you think? I mean, do you think this guy's going to get magic out of her?
Well, going back to my law enforcement days, very infrequently was someone like Mr. Padilla come into a situation and help the situation. You know, clearly he's motivated by his own, well, he has his own motivation for being here. But the reality is I think there's a greater probability of interference with the investigation by the law enforcement agency than there is anything else. In terms of getting or extracting information from her, listen, anytime you want to get a lot of publicity, you want to get notoriety, you come out with an opinion that's in direct contrast with the vast majority of opinions. I would like to hear just one bit of evidence or even one clue that leads him to believe that this little girl is still alive, and secondly, how he can go about then extracting this information from the mother to help him, you know, find where this child is.
Law enforcement hasn't charged her with a murder, attempted murder, or any kind of a homicide. What more do you need?
Bethany Marshall, psychoanalyst and author of Deal Breakers. Is there a psychological component? I mean, does Mr. Padilla obviously believes he's got something up his sleeve, he's got some trick, some ability to make this woman who has basically been a punk in many ways in her attitude toward people. I don't know whether she hurt anybody or buried anybody or did anything. And let's keep in mind, she is a person of interest in terms of this of anything more foul than a disappearance. So let's keep that in mind. We don't know what she did, but she acts pretty darn self-righteous. What is it about Mr. Padilla that thinks he's going to get something out of her nobody else has gotten?
Well, I do hope he ends up being the criminal whisperer, but if she's not bonded enough to her own child to tell the truth, how is she going to bond to a guy in a 10-gallon hat? I mean, let's keep in mind why pathological liars lie. They lie even when there's no long-term incentive. That is essentially a feature of the disorder. So whoever is going to get her to tell this truth is going to have to incentivize her. I'll tell you what would incentivize her is maybe the promise of being with a boyfriend, the promise of an idealized life, somebody who can get her to talk and talk and talk. And as Padilla did point out, pull out, you know, a grain of truth in the midst of all the lies. But without any external incentive, she's really not going to tell the truth.
I'm Pat Alama in for Nancy Grace. Thanks so much for being with us. Back to Mr. Padilla very quickly. You told me earlier today, you admitted you feel that KC is withholding information, that there are things she's not telling us.
Absolutely. She told the police that this Zenaida Hernandez Gonzalez was the babysitter, and then she led him on some kind of a wild goose chase because she said, well, I told some other people trying to reinforce her story down at Universal or somewhere. So she ran them around in a, you know, in a circle, getting absolutely nowhere. I agree with you. She's been lying to them. There's no...
Would you take on a case knowing that a person could be lying right to your face?
I do that all the time. Fugitives that run, and over 4,000, some maybe 5,000 that I brought back to justice from all around the world, lied. Their mom lied, their brother lied, their sister, their wife. They all lied. We have to get one little grain of truth to follow up as a lead.
Mr. Episcopo, as a defense attorney, you don't have any issue with someone sort of stepping in and taking a little bit of an investigative approach here, which is what Mr. Padilla is doing.
Of course not. Why would you object to
Because he's the bounty hunter.
So what? That's just a title. He goes and finds people. You know? He goes and finds people. What's the big deal about that?
Holly Hughes, what do you think?
Well, Pat, I agree with Mr. Majeski, our NYPD expert, who's saying every time you get another person involved, especially a lay person, and from perspective of law enforcement, this guy hasn't been trained, he hasn't been to the police academy, hasn't been to law enforcement or FBI academy. I think the more people you get into it, the more you're going to confuse the issue. There is the likelihood that information is going to get messed up. It's not going to be relayed to the proper authorities. I mean, the Anthonys are out there conducting their own investigation. Casey's invested her own investigation. We now have a psychic team doing their own investigation. Nobody's turned up anything. So I don't think that this particular man coming in right now is going to work any magic.
I have to shift gears just for a couple of minutes, and we'll get back to this matter. But Wyatt Locke is a person who participated in a weekend search for Caylee. Wyatt, thank you so much for being with us. Now, you did turn over material to police. This is important because they did accept it, and this is sort of along the lines of Mr. Singer talking about interference with investigations. Everyone appreciates what you do. It's incredibly altruistic. Tell us first what you found, where it went, then we'll discuss the merits of that.
I'm sorry, I didn't catch the last part of the question.
All right, well, just tell us what you found and where it went.
Well, we did find two knapsacks out in the wooded area in the Econ Soccer Complex, which is linked to J. Blanchard Park. The one was a pink flowery knapsack, and the other one was a solid red knapsack, along with some female clothing that matched the size that was described on the Orange County Sheriff's Department warrant of stuff removed from the Anthony home, along with a couple articles of children's clothing.
All right, this was significant. You did call police. They did accept it?
That is correct. As soon as it was found and we determined that it might be something of relevance, the entire group was called out of the area, and law enforcement was notified immediately, in which when they arrived, they went and collected the knapsacks, and then went back in and also collected 2 large brown bags of other stuff and loaded it into their vehicle, took our information, and then they left and let us know that if they needed anything else, they would be back in contact with us.
You know, I have to ask people like you who take time out of your own lives to do something like this for a little girl you didn't know, what gives you that incentive? And bless you for doing it, but what gives you that incentive?
Well, a bunch of us in the group, some of us have family connections, they have grandchildren, they have children, and that's their incentive. My incentive is really just because, this is a little child, it's a defenseless little child, and, I live in Orlando, I see the story on the news every night, and it's something that I've become very, entangled with, and I've been watching the story, I see the pain that the family's going through, I see the pain that the community is going through and the nation as a whole, and they want to see this little girl found. And at this point, we figured, why not go out there and look for this little girl and see if we can maybe help.
Well, it is an incredible thing. And Ronald Singer, as a forensic scientist, I know you also probably believe it's an incredible thing when people try to get involved. But your concern is that things can be compromised.
Absolutely. I agree. As laudable as their desire to assist in this matter is, and I think it is very laudable, and they deserve credit for that. I think that going out on your own, no matter how cautious you try to be, without the scientific knowledge or the training that a crime scene investigator or others would have in these instances, only opens the door for contamination, possible contamination at least, and the destruction of evidence that they don't even know exists. The stuff that they were able to see, from what I heard just now, they handled in the most appropriate way. They backed off and called the police and let them come in to collect it. But what they didn't see was what they may have walked on when they got there. And without the training and the expertise that is required to do that kind of job, I'm very, very concerned that groups like this that go in are going to operate at cross purposes to what law enforcement is trying to do.
Very quickly, just a few seconds, Mark Williams, news director, WNDB. What about this forensic evidence that we're waiting so patiently, or not so patiently, for with bated breath? When do we expect to hear about it, and will we hear about it at all?
Well, here's the deal. We were supposed to hear about this nearly 2 weeks ago. A week has gone by. Nothing's allegedly come in. We've waited another week. Nothing has come in. And there's always been debate within the sheriff's office whether any of the information from the DNA tests will ever be released. That's soon to come.
I
I find it hard to believe that a mother of a 3-year-old child would harm her.
Oh, come on. You're a bounty hunter. You've never heard of mothers harming their children?
Yes, but I still want to believe that.